You're the worst. Art is a subjective thing, but I don't have to tell you that. Whenever you put the time and energy into creating something to put out into the world, you, of course, want everybody to like it. That's a lie, because you really want everyone to love it. Therefore, thereby providing the validation you as the creator not only crave, but feel you deserve. This feeling is temporary because you eventually realize the importance and significance of actually creating something far outweighs the acceptance of said thing. You come to understand what you create isn't necessarily for everyone. So while there may be some detractors, the people it is meant for will get from your work what you feel they're supposed to. While the sting of criticism never fully goes away, it does become easier to overcome. At least most of the time. I used to play in a band called Letters to Voltron for a few years. And as bands do, we went through several incarnations. We were originally an acoustic duo alongside my cohort, Robbie C. We performed songs with a humorous bent to them, which to some came off as offensive or inappropriate. We were unfazed for the most part, understanding that what we did was not going to be widely accepted, but only to those people who have a stick firmly shoved up their ass. We didn't make music for the stick-ass folks. We did it for those who appreciate the fine art of sticking dick and fart jokes into songs. You can imagine songs about donkey punching, beaver shaving, and trying to get rid of the clap weren't going to play well in some rooms. And we had our share of haters. We'd been heckled, booed, and even had a pizza thrown at us once. I vividly remember being hit in the chest with a warm and sloppy slice of pepperoni. But I refused to stop the song. The pizza stuck to my chest, slowly slid down my shirt, eventually coming to rest solidly atop my guitar. Of course, it wasn't all bad, and we had far more positive experiences than negative ones, but sometimes you just don't know when you're going to push someone's buttons in a way that evokes a most unpleasant reaction. It was the night before Mother's Day, several years back. Robbie and I were playing a gig at a small, dirty bar on the north side of town. This was a place mostly known for being a sports bar, enjoyed by neighborhood regulars, but had live music on weekends, much to the chagrin of said regulars. The band we were sharing the evening with were friends of ours, and a decent-sized crowd of mostly familiar faces began to amass in front of the stage as we were about to begin. There wasn't much for us to prepare in the way of sound checking, since we only had 2 acoustic guitars running straight into the mixing board and a vocal mic for each of us. Robbie and I shared a penchant for wackiness, and during this period of the band, we'd taken to wearing different types of costume pieces to enhance the humorous aesthetic we had cultivated. Our costuming ran the gamut of bloody doctor scrubs, to wrestling onesies, to pocket protector-equipped lab coats, coupled with wacky wigs, and so on. This particular night, we decided on Lone Ranger masks, capes, and very tiny novelty cowboy hats held to our heads by thin strings tied beneath our chins. The outfit was tame in comparison to our usual regalia, but we decided to dress according to our surroundings, which were decidedly low-key. Checked and dressed, we began our set plugging old favorites like The Clap Came Back, Tuck and Tape, and my angry erection. Like I said, we have fun but have no delusions over who our target demographic is. Unfortunately, being aware of who your work appeals to doesn't mean those it doesn't won't be exposed. One of our classic hit or miss songs was called I Heart Mother, which was a play on the Pink Floyd album called Adam Hart Mother. The song was told through the perspective of a young man telling his best friend that he's been having sex with his mother for the entirety of their friendship. The lyrics detailed the early years of their affair, beginning when he was a teenager, goes on through college, and then into adulthood, with the chorus proclaiming loud and proud, I fucked your mom, over and over. As I mentioned, this was the day before Mother's Day. So I gave a lengthy intro before the song, saying how important mothers are and how deserving of our love and respect they are. I like to think that if I wasn't wearing the Lone Ranger mask, I would have been able to see it coming. But the drawback of such masks is your peripheral vision becomes heavily compromised. I felt it before I saw it. And my initial reaction was confusion before being kickstarted into full-blown rage. We were in the middle of the second chorus when I felt a tug at my guitar cord like I'd accidentally stepped on it. But a second, much harder pull told me this was not my doing. Before I had a chance to react, the microphone I was singing into was pulled from my face and thrown to the floor, followed by a third heavy yank at my guitar cord, pulling it free of my instrument and bringing the show to a halt. This all happened within only a few seconds as an older man then stepped up onto the stage, getting into my face and shouting, "You're terrible! You're awful! You are the worst!" Clearly, he was not a fan, but this was not the proper way to communicate criticism. What happened next is neither indicative of my character or my life philosophy, but fight or flight is a much stronger impulse than we realize until thrust into a situation that calls for it. I never realized the term going red could actually be literal, but as I pulled my guitar off over my head with one hand and my Lone Ranger mask off with the other, the old man in front of me was bathed in a cascade of crimson hues, getting darker by the second. What the fuck was all I could muster as I stepped toward him, walking us both off the stage, my hand reaching out to grab hold of the front of his shirt. He backed away, continuing to spew his distaste for me. If my girlfriend at the time hadn't stepped in the narrow space between he and I, this story would be ending with, and that's what it was like to kick an old man's ass. Alas, things didn't go that way. The entire bar erupted into chaos, as they had all witnessed the events unfold. At least everyone except for the bartender, who raced to the floor, also wedging herself between the old man and me. She started shouting in my face to back off and leave him alone, accusing me of being in the wrong, until a throng of patrons quickly corrected her. That was when the bartender lost all control of the situation and bedlam ensued. My friends were screaming at the old man, who was in turn screaming back while attempting to make his way out of the bar. His demeanor had noticeably changed from outrage to fear. He got into his car, which was parked just outside the door, and continued his attempt to flee the scene. In a final act of unapologetic defiance, one of my friends snatched an oversized ashtray from a table filled to the brim with butts and chucked it at the old man's windshield. It exploded in a beautiful snow-like shower of silvery white ash and bent cotton filters, as if meant for a celebratory occasion and not contemptuous revenge. The old man was forced to look into a sea of middle fingers and fresh cracks spider-webbed from one side of the windshield to the other in a true manifestation of instant karma. The old man spun his car around, peeled off down the main road, and was gone from my life for good. The rest of the evening was anticlimactic, to say the least. I cooled down, and after the bartender was filled on what happened, she apologized. And we ended up finishing our set. I acted like the whole thing didn't bother me and feigned laughing it off, but I was secretly still fuming over the ordeal. On one hand, I viewed it as a win because something I created evoked emotion and reaction as art is supposed to do. But on the other, I felt a real line had been crossed. Just because you don't like or understand something doesn't give you the right to try and destroy it. I was going to have to accept that there are people like this old man who think just the opposite. At the end of the night, my friend from the other band and I sat in the back office of the bar across a desk from the bartender, paying us out for the evening. She handed over the cash while making excuses for it not being as much as we were promised, and quickly segued into how she had won a pretty titty contest at some other awful bar. Without any prompting, she pulled down her blouse to show off her prize-winning tatas. Much to my bewilderment, I myself am a staunch lover of titties of all kinds. But if she won, I'd hate to see the other contestants. I walked out of the bar that night with two profound realizations. Sometimes art can be dangerous and volatile, which is part of what makes it worth doing. Also, sometimes even at your lowest, not even titties can cheer you up.